If you feel exhausted running your agency, but your revenue or profit isn't necessarily bad, this video is for you. Because burnout is not about just working too many hours. It's about spending too much of your energy in the wrong place. And what most agency owners don't realize is this: burnout doesn't just make you tired. It quietly lowers your decision quality, reduces your strategic thinking, and caps your growth. So in this video, I'm going to show you what burnout actually is costing you as an agency owner and how to fix it by rebalancing your energy, not just your calendar. So let's start with burnout being about balance and not just like this idea of time. So the vast majority of people ultimately are talking about burnout being just too many hours, and you can absolutely work too many hours and create burnout. So we'll put that aside for now, but I ultimately think that there's a bigger dynamic that's ultimately going on. You can burn out at 40 hours a week, you can and thrive at 70. And I'm sure that you've had that situation happen in your own business too. The reality of how I actually see burnout, and the most consistent way that I see it happening, is that burnout is more a prolonged energy drain, that you're misaligned in the things that you're doing, or misaligned in your focus. You're misaligned in how you are actually feeling within the business. So you burn out when the tasks that you are doing is that you're not uniquely qualified to do, and it's actually causing a drain in every single time you do it. You end up spending your time in these like frustrating loops, things that you are in a working competency or a working frustration in the way that you're actually working and the way that you're functioning. And so you end up operating more reactively rather than strategically and doing things that you truly enjoy. So I fundamentally believe that burnout is an energy imbalance problem and not just a calendar problem. So how can we look at making an augmentation to the focus of our time and attention and where our mind is being spent versus just looking at it from a dollars and cents number of hours perspective? So let's talk briefly for a moment about what burnout is actually costing. So the reality of the world is that when you are in burnout or edging towards burnout, your decision quality is worse. You have lower clarity, your lower quality hires, lower quality offers, you're selling from a point of frustration. So you're doing things differently. Your partnerships are not coming in from the right place. You're not focusing on the right things. Your decision quality just is flawed. Plain and simple. Your strategic thinking becomes more difficult because the idea of continuing to be in that same kind of place for 6 to 12 months, or even continuing to be in business in 6 to 12 months, feels like a difficult thing. And so it changes the way that you're even looking at strategic thinking, whether that's for your client or for you, but the dynamic completely shifts. It ends up creating a revenue ceiling. So those two things end up leading to the symptom of a glass ceiling for you. So you are optimizing ultimately in this point for just maintaining, because the idea of expanding feels like more of you that needs to be sacrificed, more of you that you're going to have to deposit into the business, and you don't have any more to deposit. So it ends up changing the way that you show up, which then also creates for this authority component, both externally as well as internally. So it ends up causing a cultural drain. So when you are in this place of decision quality being less, you're frustrated and strategically not thinking well and not feeling clear in what you're doing, you end up showing up as a leader as exhausted. So you're focusing entirely on short-term decisions, kind of managing things as much as you possibly can, completely disconnecting from things that you should be involved in, completely involving yourself in things that you shouldn't. And you end up in this like really not great dynamic with your team members, as well as the way that you're showing up externally. Because the reality is that if you are not living in a passionate place, your passion gets muted, your excitement gets muted, and people are not drawn to you when you're in that place. And then finally, one of the things that is a softer component, not specifically to business, but I think that is vitally important to you as a human being, your personal fulfillment. The reality of the world is that you chose to be in this business because of a personal excitement, a thing that you really enjoyed, from you spending hours doodling and drawing when you were a kid, spending time under your blankets, just enjoying creating something new. The fact that you can sit outside and just dream up new ideas is a core component about who you are, that archetype of the creative. You've chosen this vocation because it is you. But the reality of time has progressed where you end up spending less of the time that you want to spend in the thing that ultimately defined you and how exactly you chose this specific vocation. And so when your energy is in this place, you end up feeling less fulfilled, and reasonably so, less energetic, less motivated. And so when your energy drops, your agency is going to shrink, and your level of current capacity is going to also shrink alongside of it. And it creates for a lose-lose situation for everyone. So let's talk about that energy balance kind of framework of how do we think about it. And the reality is I'm going to give different components of suggestions and like directionality here. But the reality is that you are unique. The things that you enjoy are different than the things that I enjoy. As you may have heard in other videos before, I'm a spreadsheet nerd and I enjoy spreadsheets. You probably aren't. And if you are, cool, we'll get along and talk about spreadsheets, but we can also get along on all sorts of other things too. The reality is that I'm different than you are, and you're also different than another person that is viewing this video, and you're different than my other clients as well. And I want you to think about this in the context of you, and I want us to put things into buckets. And so we'll define the buckets and then we'll give some examples of like the way that they function. Is energy generating work, neutral work that like you're good at or okay at, and then energy draining work, things that actually directly pull from your batteries. And so here's things that I generally kind of see being things that are energy driving. It's larger vision for the business, strategy for clients or larger strategy for the business. It's actually winning deals, not necessarily all the components, the administrative pieces that go into sell, but actually winning deals. The design component, the actual big idea components of what's going on, and mentoring your team, actually pouring into other team members around you, actually having meaningful impact to other creatives is a huge component that I see very commonly, things that are energy adding. Then energy neutral work is, oversight of work. It's that final kind of revision. It's the things that are just, midway through a project. It's that like maintenance oriented pieces of the business that are not necessarily draining, but they're not necessarily additive. And so I want you to like think through those components. And then there's the energy draining work. So very commonly, Excel spreadsheets, low-level administrative work, reacting to Slack chaos, looking at project management, deliverable micromanagement, things that ultimately you're just generally not good at, and repetitive kind of frustration loops. And so here's how I want you to think about it. I want you to look through your life in the business right now. And I want you to break it down into those three quadrants: energy driving, neutral, and energy draining, and how exactly it actually fully breaks down into those different buckets. And think through what items are you currently doing that fall into these different categories. Growth requires that you spend the majority of your time in that cognitive energy generating component of your life, that first category that I was talking about, ensuring that you are able to actually continue to have that energy. And that's the distinction between becoming drained at 40 hours a week versus just thriving at 70. And I'm not saying that I want you to be working 70 hours a week. That's a life choice that you can be making. But the reality is that we've all gone through phases like that. I'm getting a little bit older. It's a little bit harder physically for me to do those types of things. But the reality is that the more that you're actually energized by something, right, the more excited you are by it, the more capacity you have for it. The reality for many of you is that you ended up being stuck in the things that you didn't, that you ended up being kind of this like cast off junk drawer of things that you didn't actually want to do. And we need to do some spring cleaning. And so here's the shift that I want you to be making is there's a component of it that's the identity of you as an agency owner. And then there's the component of actually looking at the energy driving pieces. So there is a component that we need to be thinking about ourselves as the founder, the visionary, the directionality part of the business. And then there's the operator. That's one of the first pieces that we actually do want to start to take off and give to someone else, is the operational component. You are the energy allocator. It's like, here, you're the person that enjoys this thing, I'm going to give this thing to you. You're the person that enjoys this thing, I'm going to give this thing to you. It's like that idea of hiring for your weaknesses, having the people around you that are great at things that you suck at. And that's perfectly okay. I suck at loads of things, and I'm sure that you do too. Maybe I should just speak for myself. I suck at loads of things, and I have people around me that really are great at the things that I'm not good at. And it makes us successful together. And your job, frankly, is not to just do more. It's to protect your highest energy, value, driving components of the business. And the same thing is true for your team. How do you protect their higher energy components as well? Making sure that everyone is being additive to the business so that we're able to actually have an incredibly passionate, excited, and motivated team that is able to drive the business forward. So here's how I want you to concretely start to go about actioning pieces of this. I want you to just remove yourself from one energy draining function right now. Just pick one. And you may continue to do one a quarter, and eventually that momentum continue to creep up. But I do want you to audit your time on a regular basis. So let's call it every other week. I want you to look at, where is your time going? Slow down and think through, how did it actually feel? Do I feel motivated by it? Do I like sigh at the idea of doing that again? Does it make me lament it? Does it make me excited? Do I feel neutral? Does it like, oh, it's just whatever kind of thing, right? There's loads of different pieces of how you personally feel. And as you continue to aggregate those items, have a better understanding of you as a human being, the things that continue to drive energy. And the reality of me 10 years ago versus me today, they're very different versions of Robert. And the things that give me energy today versus the things that used to give me energy 10 years ago have changed as well. And realize that that adjusts and changes over time. Hopefully, we've also developed as people. And I want you to start to design your week around that peak cognitive performance. The reality for me is I'm at my best in the morning. I am at my worst in the afternoon, early evening, late afternoon. That is when I'm at my worst. And so my bigness cognitive components of life, I do in the morning, the things that actually create and need a lot of me in order for me to be able to do so and understand your given cadence. And, just from a biological perspective, there's people that run the gamut, people that enjoy being up late at night. There's people that really thrive in the middle of the day. And then there's people like me that thrive in the morning. Like I kind of wake up singing kind of personality, right? And that very well may piss you off. That's okay. This is off my husband. The reality is I want you to design your week around your peak cognitive performance and then start to understand your decision-making bandwidth of like, hey, the reality is that I need to make all these decisions in the morning. I can do that around 10 o'clock, but by 4 o'clock, I am done with all of my decision-making. Bring that to me the following day and just start to protect you as a human being, you as an individual that allows for you to be able to have more of that energy day to day. If this resonated with you at all, I want you to take 10 minutes this week and audit where your energy is actually going. Burnout isn't a workload problem. It is a leadership allocation problem. And if you stay in energy drain long enough, you don't just feel tired. You start making smaller decisions, you start playing safer and optimizing for survival instead of growth. And that's ultimately when agencies plateau. And most of the time, the founder doesn't even see it happening. So if you want to identify the blind spots that you're quietly capping your agency's growth, watch this video on the 5 blind spots holding agencies back, because burnout is usually just the symptom.